Go to lunch and do it community. I won't tell on the bro for the community. Please be the next year, gon' ruin me. I'm the bully when I let out do me. I got hoes by the boot trying to do me. My life like a movie, get hit in the water. Don't got put in no progress in order. This shooting got serious to me. It's confirmed. I'm moving my motor. These people been keeping no word. This store, I'm young and I'm turned. I got pictures from Florida. I been in my whole across the city. I'm 30. Got 5 million cash. There's a twist to be murdered. My niggas give you the way they be murdered. They happen like this. I ain't do it on purpose. I'm cooking my whole nigga. Who are you working? I turn on my coupe out of coupe out the first. I'm tired of these tripping. I'm pouring in nurses and doctors and dentists. These water I did it. I told you be with it. My word got food in my city. I tell them to go. They don't get it. I put them frozen. They get it. Putting these holes in the business. You know that you kill it. Tell them no, they don't listen. Knowing these niggas be sweet and some bitches I'm different. She trying to leave me, I'm low down. I ain't with savage. You don't bring your whole round. I'm going bougie. I'm switching my profile. All of my cars get delivered with no mouth. They think they do it. We don't. I don't know how. Run through the low on the plug. I need no pound. I put on trip every day from the floor. I'm getting sick. This shit goes some more. Y'all in my driving lane. Probably like my boy makes sure nobody follow us. I got a dog with a shot at this coffee truck. I get the money anyway like this coffee truck. Boy, ain't hell on the bill. All these coffee trucks. The bills ain't nobody stopping us. We got a run in the store that we probably don't feel. We can get back to school. I was probably the kid. All of my hoes be good. Making my thing too much. Hey, I'm thinking probably too high and I raise. Shit in my bank account getting outraged. Think better like that. Look at my brain and I'm feeling outside to the south. Get flamed. Switch up my route to the house. Had to change. Still with this shit I forget that I'm straight on the lead. I'm going out. I ain't with savage. Don't bring your whole round. I'm going on bougie. I'm switching my profile. All of my cars get delivered with no mouth. They think they cool. We don't. I don't know how. I'm through the low on the plug. I need no time. Put up the every day from the floor. We getting sick. This shit goes some more. You tryna leave me, I'm low down. I ain't with savage, you don't bring your whole round. I'm going bougie, I'm switching my profile. All of my cars get delivered with no mouth. They think they cool, we don't, I don't know how. I've been through the low on the plug, I need more pounds. Put on every day from the floor. We getting sick, this shit goes some more. Papa chat. We about to get back to reading with Kai while playing this top shelf. But before I do, what's poppin'? And these damn dogs in here terrorizing shit. They terrorizing the house. Oh Lord. They terrorizing. Sorry, though. I only got an hour with y'all today because I got some stuff to do, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna go ahead and clean. How was y'all weekend? Shit, y'all had a long weekend. Shit, it was Martin Luther King's birthday. I'm about to, I think I got like 3 or 4 new stores. I'm working on a video, a promotional video for TikTok and for YouTube Shorts and stuff. And I'm gonna drop that, and you're gonna see I got like probably three or 4 new stores that we in now from going past with the funnel. So I'm working on that. Maintaining with these crazy dogs. What's up with y'all? What y'all doing? I'm going outside in the field. I got some more runs to make. So I said, hey, why not get on and get my hour? So I got the free time. All I'm doing is taking the veins out and getting it ready to go ahead and dry process. So then when it's ready to bag, all the stands already gone. And all these big old veins in your bag, you can just tap in your little J. However you do what you do. It ain't gonna be a hassle with all these little games. And working on getting me another camera so I can do IRL while I'm outside doing deliveries and even going to the stores, dropping it off at the stores and stuff. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get me a camera so I can have my cameraman Brown follow me around everywhere, and y'all can see more IRL stuff. Cause the camera I got right now I'm using for my setup. Trick myself. But I'm about to go ahead and pick up where we left off that with Kai. See what's going on with him. Cause he reading better at speech. So you learn how to talk better. And I'm trying to learn how to talk better too. So I'm tuned into his journey. Y'all just tune in with me. Tune in with me. Where we was at, I think, okay, we on 8.
It is currently December 28, 1:05. I'm about to get into reading. 1:05 p.m. I'm about to do 15 minutes of reading right now. 15 minutes on the clock.
Oh my sound right.
I'm reading so I can help myself speak better. Friends, we try to write a book in a chaotic household. We try to concentrate while using a smartphone filled with distractions. It doesn't have to be this way. We can remove the points of friction that hold us back. This is precisely what electronic manufacturers in Japan began to do in the 1970s. In an article published in the New Yorker titled "Better All the Time," James Hiroaki writes, Japanese firms emphasize what came to be known as lean production. Relentlessly looking to remove waste of all kinds from the production process down to redesigning workspaces, so workers didn't have to waste time twisting and turning to reach their tools. The result was that Japanese factories were more efficient and Japanese products were more reliable than American ones. In 1974, service calls for American-made color televisions were 5 times as common as for Japanese televisions by 1979. It took American workers 3 times as long to assemble their sets. I like to refer to the strategy
as out the kitchen. You hear me?
The Japanese companies looked for every point of friction in the manufacturing process and eliminated it. As they subtracted wasted effort, they added customers and revenue. Similarly, when we remove the points of friction that sap our time and energy, we can achieve more with less effort. This is one reason tidying up can feel so good. We are stimulously moving forward and lightening the cognitive load our environment places on us. If you look at the most habit-forming products, you'll notice that one of the things these goods and services do best is remove little bits of friction from your life. Meal delivery services reduce the friction of shopping for groceries. Dating apps reduce the friction of making social introductions. Ride-sharing services reduce the friction of getting across town. Text messaging reduces the friction of sending a letter in the mail. Like a Japanese television manufacturer redesigning their workspace to reduce wasted motion, successful companies design their products to automate, eliminate, or simplify as many steps as possible. They reduce the number of fields on each form. They pare down the number of clicks required to create an account. They deliver their products with easy-to-understand directions or ask their customers to make fewer choices. When the first voice-activated speakers were released, products like Google Home, Amazon Echo, and Apple HomePod, I asked a friend what he liked about the product he had purchased. He said it was just easier to say, play some country music, than to pull out his phone, open the music app, and pick a playlist. Of course, just a few years earlier, having unlimited access to music in your pocket was remarkably frictionless behavior compared to driving to the store and buying a CD. Business is never-ending quest
Don't be hard
to
headed.
deliver
Get
the
out of
same
there.
result in an easier
Hey.
fashion.
Hey.
Similar strategies
Yeah,
have been
you.
used
Get out of here.
effectively by governments. When the British government wanted to increase tax collection rates, they switched from sending citizens to a web page where the tax form could be downloaded to linking directly to the form. Reducing that one step in the process increased the response rate from 19.2% to 23.4%. For for a country like the United Kingdom, those percentage points represent millions in tax revenue. The central idea is to create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. Which of, much of the battle of building better habits comes down to finding ways to reduce the friction associated with our good habits and increase the friction associated with our bad ones. Prime, prime the environment for future use. Oswald Nuckless is an IT developer from Natchez, Mississippi. He is also someone who understands the power of priming his environment. Lucas dialed in his cleaning habits by following a strategy he refers to as resetting the room. For instance, when he finishes watching television, he places the remote back on the TV stand, arranges the pillows on the couch, and folds the blanket. When he leaves his car, he throws any trash away. Whenever he takes a shower, he wipes down the toilet while the shower is warming up. As he notes, the perfect time to clean the toilet is right before you. Wash yourself in the shower anyway. The purpose of resetting each room is not simply to clean up after the last action, but to prepare for the next action. When I walk into a room, everything is in the right place. Nicholas wrote, because I do this every day in every room. Stuff always stays in good shape. People think I work hard, but I'm actually really lazy. I'm just proactively lazy. It gives you so much time back. Whenever you organize a space for its intended purpose, you are priming it to make the next action easy. For instance, my wife keeps a box of wedding graduation of wedding. My wife keeps a box of greeting cards that are pre-sorted by occasion: birthday, sympathy, wedding, graduation, and more. Whenever necessary, she grabs an appropriate card and sends it off. She is she is incredibly good at remembering to send cards because she has reduced the friction of doing good for years. I was the opposite. Someone would have a baby and I would think I should send a card. I should send a card. But then weeks would pass, and by the time I remembered to pick one up from the store, it was too late. The habit wasn't easy. There are many ways to prime your environment so it's ready for immediate use. If you want to cook a healthy breakfast, place the skillet on the stove, set the cooking spray on the counter, and lay out any plates and essentials you'll need the night before. When you wake up, making breakfast will be easy. Want to draw more? Put your pencils, pens, notebooks, and drawing tools on top of your desk within easy reach. Want to exercise? Set out your workout clothes, shoes, gym bag, and water bottle ahead of time. Want to improve your diet? Chop up a ton of fruits and vegetables on weekends and pack them in containers. So you have easy access to healthy, ready to eat options during the week. These are simple ways to make a good habit the path of least resistance. You can also invert this principle and prime the environment to make bad behaviors difficult. If you find yourself watching too much television, for example, then unplug it after each use. Only plug it back in if you can say out loud the name of the
You're
show.
from over there. We already talked about that
This
side.
setup creates just enough friction to prevent
Hello?
mindless viewing.
If
That doesn't do it, you can take it a step further. Unplug the television and take the batteries out of the remote after each use. So it takes an extra 10 seconds to turn it back on. And if you're really hardcore, move the television out of the living room and into a closet after each use. You can be sure you'll only take it out when you really want to watch something. The greater the friction, the less likely the habit. Whenever possible, I leave my phone in a different room until lunch. When it's right next to me, I'll check it all morning for no reason at all. But when it's in another room, I really think about it. And the friction is high enough that I won't go get it without a reason. As a result, I get 3 to 4 hours each morning when I can work with it without interruption. If sticking your phone in another room doesn't seem like enough, tell a friend or family member to hide it from you for a few hours. Ask coworkers to keep it at their desk in the morning and give it back to you at lunch. It is remarkable how little friction is required to prevent unwanted behavior. When I hide beer in the back of the fridge where I can't see it, I drink less. When I delete social media apps on my phone, it can be weeks before I download it again and log in. These tricks are unlikely to curb a true addiction, but for many of us, these tricks are. But for many of us, a little bit of friction can be the difference between sticking with a good habit or sliding into a bad one. Imagine the cumulative impact of making dozens of these changes and living in an environment designed to make the good behaviors easier, the bad behaviors harder. Whether we are approaching behavior change as an individual, a parent, a coach, or a leader, we should ask ourselves the same questions. How can we design a world where it's easy to do what's right? Redesign your life so that the actions that matter most are also the actions are, that are easiest to do. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2 minute rule. Twyla Twyla Tharp is widely regarded as one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the modern era in 1992. She was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship, often referred to as a Genius Grant, and she has spent the bulk of her career touring the globe to perform her original works. She also credits much of her success to simple daily habits. I begin each day of my life with a ritual, she writes. I wake up at 5:30 a.m., put out my workout clothes, my leg warmers, my sweatshirt, my hat. I walk outside my Manhattan home, hail a taxi, and tell the driver to take me to the Pumping Iron Gym at 91st Street and First Avenue, where I work out for 2 hours. The ritual is not the stretching and weight training I put my body through each morning at the gym. The ritual is the calf. The moment I tell the driver where to go, I have completed the ritual. It's a simple act, but doing in the same way each morning habitualizes it, makes it repeatable, easy to do. It reduces the chance that I will skip it or do it differently. It is one more item in my arsenal of routines and one less thing to think about. Hailing a cab each morning may be a tiny action, but it is a splendid example of the third law of behavior change. Researchers estimate that 40 to 50% of our actions on any given day are done out of habit. This is already a substantial percentage, but the true influence of their habits is even greater than these numbers suggest. Habits are automatic choices that influence the conscious decisions that follow. Yes, a habit can be completed in just a few seconds, but it can also shape the actions that you take for minutes or hours afterward. Habits are like the entrance ramp to a highway. They lead you down a path, and before you know it, you're speeding toward the next behavior. It seems to be easier to continue what you are already doing than to start doing something different. You sit through a bad movie for 2 hours. You keep snacking even when you're already full. You check your phone for just a second, and soon as you spend 20 minutes staring at the screen. In this way, the habits you follow without thinking often determine the choices you make when you are thinking. Each evening, there is a tiny moment, usually around 5:15 p.m., that shapes the rest of my night. My wife walks into the doors from work, and either we change into our workout clothes and head to the gym, or we crash onto the couch, order Indian food, and watch The Office. Similar to Twilight Dark, killing the cat. The ritual is changing into my workout clothes. If I change clothes, I know the workout will happen. Everything that follows driving to the gym, deciding with exercises to do, stepping under the bar is easy once I've taken the first step. Every day there is a handful of moments that deliver an outsized impact. I refer to these little choices as decisive moments. The moment you decide between ordering takeout or cooking dinner, the moment you choose between driving your car or riding your bike, the moment you decide between starting your homework or grabbing the video game controller, these choices are a fork in the road. Decisive moments set the options available to your future self. For instance, walking into a restaurant is a decisive moment because it determines what you'll be eating for lunch. Technically, you are in control of what you order. But in a larger sense, you can only order an item if it is on the menu. If you walk into the steakhouse, you can get a sirloin or a ribeye, but not sushi. Your options are concentrated by what's available. They are shaped by the first choice. We are limited by where our habits lead us. This is why mastering the decisive moments throughout your day is so important. Each day is made up of many moments, but it is really a few habitable choices that determine the path you take. These little choices stack up, each one setting the trajectory for how you spend the next chunk of time. Habits are the entry point, not the end point. They are the cab, not the gym. The 2 minute rule. Even when you know you should start small, it's easy to start big. When you dream about making a change, excitement inevitably takes over, and you end up trying to do so too much too soon. The most effective way I know to counteract this tendency is to use the 2 minute rule, which states when you are starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. You'll find that the barely any habit can be scaled down into 2 minute version. Read before the bed each Read before bed each night becomes read one page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open the notes. Fold the laundry becomes fold one pair of socks. Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can mediate for 1 minute, read one page, or put one item of clothing away. And as we have just discussed, this is a powerful strategy because once you started doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. What you want is a gateway habit that naturally leads you down a more productive path. You can usually figure out the gateway habits that will lead to right there. Second paragraph. That has been 15 minutes of reading, and that is my timer. I'm reading to help myself speak better. Thank you. It is currently January 3rd, 8:36.
We not on 13.
It is currently December.
Excuse me, chat. We not on 13. We on like at least 9. Get on me. These damn dogs. 7, 8. That's another 8.
All right, I'm setting 15 minutes on the clock. I'll be reading a book, and it's to help me speak better. Here we go. Starting the time now. It is currently December 29th, 6:02 p.m. Here we go. Okay. You can usually figure out the gateway habits that will lead to your desired outcome by mapping out your goals on a scale from very easy to very hard. For instance, running a marathon is very hard. Running a 5K is hard. Walking 10,000 steps is moderately difficult. Walking 10 minutes is easy. And putting on your running shoes is very easy. Your goal might be to run a marathon, but your gateway habit is to put on your running shoes. That's how you follow the 2 minute rule. People often think it's weird to get hyped about reading one page or mediating for 1 minute or making one sales call. But the point is not to do one thing. The point is to master the habit of showing up. The truth is a habit must be established before it can be improved. If you can't learn the basic skill of showing up, then you have little hope of mastering the finer details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, do the easy thing on a more consistent basis. You have to standardize before you can optimize. As you master the art of showing up, the first 2 minutes simply become a ritual at the beginning of the larger routine. This is not merely a hack to make habits easier, but actually the ideal way to master a difficult skill. The more you the more you ritualize the beginning of a process, the more likely it becomes that you can slip into the state of deep focus that is required to do great things. By doing the same warm up before every workout, you make it easier to get into a state of peak performance. By following the same creative ritual, you make it easier to get into
Yeah.
You make it easier to get to bed at a reasonable time each night. You you may not be able to automate the whole process, but you can make the first action mindless. Make it easy to start, and the rest will follow. The 2 minute rule can seem like a trick to some people. You know the real goal is to do more than just 2 minutes. So it may feel like you're trying to fool yourself. Nobody is actually aspiring to read one
Hey,
page or do
you
one
know,
push up
you're from.
or open their notes. And if you know it's a mental trick, why would you fall for it? If the 2 minute rule feels first, try to do this. For the 2 minutes of try to do this try this. Do it for 2 minutes and then stop. Go for a run, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Start meditating, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Study Arabic, but you must stop after 2 minutes. It's not a strategy for starting. It's the whole thing. The habit can only last 120 seconds. One of my readers used his strategy to lose over 100 pounds. In the beginning, he went to the gym each day, but he told himself he wasn't allowed to stay for more than 5 minutes. He would go to the gym, exercise for 5 minutes, and leave as soon as his time was up. After a few weeks, he looked around and thought, "Well, I'm always coming here anyway. I might as well start staying a little longer." A few years later, the weight was gone. Journaling provides another example. Nearly everyone can benefit from getting their thoughts out on their head onto paper, but most people give up after a few days or avoid it entirely because journaling feels like a chore. The secret is to always stay below the point where it feels like work. Greg McNone, a leadership consultant from the United Kingdom, built a daily journaling habit by specifically writing less than he felt like. He always stopped journaling before it seemed like a hassle. Ernest Hemingway believed in similar advice for any kind of writing. The best way is to always stop when you are going good. He said, strategies like this work for another reason too. They reinforce the identity you want to build. If you show up to the gym 5 days in a row, even if it's just for 2 minutes, you are casting votes for your new identity. You're not worried about getting in shape. You're focused on becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. You're taking the smallest action that confirms the type of person you want to be. We really think about change this way because everyone is consumed by the end goal. But one push up is better than not exercising. 1 minute of guitar practice is better than none at all. 1 minute of reading is better than never picking up a book. It's better to do less than you hope than to do nothing at all. At some point, once you establish the habit and you're showing up each day, you can combine the 2 minute rule with the technique we call habit shaping to scale your habit back up toward your ultimate goal. Start by mastering the 2 minutes of the smallest version of the behavior. Then advance to an intermediate step and repeat the process, focusing on just the first 2 minutes and mastering the stage before moving on to the next level. Eventually, you'll end up with the habit you had originally hoped to build while still keeping your focus where it should be. On the first 2 minutes of the behavior, nearly any larger life goal can be transformed into a 2 minute behavior. I want to live a healthy and long life. I need to stay in shape. I need to exercise. I need to change into my workout clothes. I want to have a happy marriage. I need to be a good partner. I should do something each day to make my partner's life easier. I should meal plan for next week. Whenever you are struggling to stick with that habit, you can employ the 2 minute rule. It's a simple way to make your habits easy. That's fire. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In the summer of 1830, Victor Hugo was facing an impossible deadline 12 months earlier. The French author had promised his publisher a new book, but instead of writing, he spent the year pursuing other projects, entertaining guests, and delaying his work. Frustrated, Hugo's publisher responded by setting deadlines less than 6 months away. The book had to be finished by February 1831. Hugo concocted a strange plan to beat the procrastination. He collected all of his clothes and asked an assistant to lock them away in a large chest. He was left with nothing to wear except a large shawl, lacking any suitable clothing to go outdoors. He remained in his study and wrote furiously during the fall and winter of 1830. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was published 2 weeks early on January 14, 1831. Sometimes success is less about making good habits easy and more about making bad habits hard. This is an inversion of third law of behavior change. Make it difficult if you find yourself continually struggling to follow through on your plans. Then you can take a page from Victor Hugo and make your bad habits more difficult by creating the psychologist called a commitment device. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. It is a way to lock in future behavior, bind you to good habits, and restrict you from bad ones. When Victor Hugo shut his clothes away so he could focus on writing, he was creating a commitment device. There are many ways to create uh, there are many ways to create a commitment device. You can reduce overreacting by purchasing food in individual packages rather than in bulk size. You can voluntarily ask to be added to the ban list at casinos and online poker sites to prevent future gambling sprees. I've even heard of athletes who have to make weight for a competition choosing to leave their wallets at home during the week before a weigh-in, so they won't be tempted to buy fast food. As another example, my friend and fellow habits expert Nir Eyal purchased an outlet timer, which is an adapter that he plugged in between his internet router and the power outlet at 10 p.m. each night. The outlet timer cuts off the power to the router. When the internet goes off, everyone knows it is time to go to bed. Commitment devices are useful because they enable you to take advantage of good intentions before you can fall victim to temptation. Whenever I'm looking to cut calories, for example, I will ask the waiter to split my meal and box of half to go before the meal is served. If I waited until the meal come out and told myself I'll just eat half, it would never work. The key is to change the task such that it requires more work to get out of the good habit than to get started on it. If you are feeling if you're feeling motivated to get in shape, schedule a yoga session and pay ahead of time. If you're excited about the business you want to start, email an entrepreneur you respect and set up a consulting call. When the time comes to act, the only way to bail is to cancel the meeting, which requires effort and may cost money. Commitment devices increase the odds that you'll do the right thing in the future by making bad habits difficult in the present. However, we can do even better. We can make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. How to automate a habit and never think about it again. John Henry Patterson was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1844. He spent his childhood doing chores on the family farm and working shifts at his father's sawmill. I have 5 minutes. My thing cut out. I had to switch.
Come on, man.
But okay, shifts at his father's sawmill. After attending the College of Dartmouth, Patterson returned to Ohio and opened a small supply store for coal miners. It seemed like a good opportunity. The store faced a little competition and enjoyed a steady stream of customers, but still struggled to make money. That was when Patterson discovered his employees were stealing from him. In the mid 1800s, employee theft was a common problem. Receipts were kept in an open drawer and could easily be altered or discarded. There were no video cameras to review behavior and no software to track transactions, unless you were willing to hover over your employees every minute of the day or to manage all transactions yourself. It was difficult to prevent theft. As Patterson mulled over pet predicament, my bad, you see that's crazy. Over his predicament, he came across an advertisement for a new invitation called Ritty's Incorruptible Cashier. Designed by fellow Dayton resident James Ritty, it was the first cash register. The machine automatically locked the cash and receipts inside after each transaction. Patterson bought two for $50 each. Employee theft at his store vanished overnight. In the next 6 months, Patterson's business went from losing money to making $5,000 in profit, the equivalent of more than $100,000 today. Patterson was so impressed with the machine that he changed businesses. He bought the rights to Ritty's inventions and opened the National Cash Register Company. 10 years later, National Cash Register had over 1,000 employees and was on its way to become the most successful businesses of its time. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it impractical to do. Increase the friction until you don't even have the option to act. The brilliance of the cash register was that it automated ethical behavior by making stealing practically impossible. Rather than trying to change the employees, it made the preferred behavior automatic. Some actions like installing a cash register pay off again and again. These one-time choices require a little bit of effort upfront, but create increasing value over time. I'm fascinated by the idea that a single choice can deliver returns again and again. And I surveyed my readers on their favorite one-time actions that led to better long-term habits. The table on the following pages shares some of the most popular answers. I'd wager that if the average person was to simply do half of the one-time actions on the list, even if they didn't give another thought to their habits, most would find themselves living a better life a year from now. These one-time actions are a straightforward way to employ the third law of behavior change. They make it easier to sleep well, eat healthy, and be productive, save money, and generally live better. Of course, there are many ways to automate good habits and eliminate bad ones. Typically, they involve putting technology to work for you. Technology can transform actions that were once hard, annoying, and complicated into behaviors that are easy, painless, and simple. It is the most reliable and effective way to guarantee the right behavior. This is particularly useful for behaviors that happen to infrequently to become habitable. Um, things you have to do monthly or yearly, like rebalancing your investment portfolio, are never repeated frequently enough to become a habit. So they benefit in particular from technology remembering to do them for you. Other examples include medicine prescriptions can be automated refilled, personal finance employees can save the retirement with an automatic wage deduction, cooking meal delivery services can do your grocery shopping, productivity, social media browsing be the can be cut off with the website blocker. When you automate as much of your life as possible, you can spend your effort on the task machines cannot do yet. On the task machines cannot do yet. Each habit that we hand over to the authority of technology frees up time and energy to pour into the next stage of growth. A mathematician and philosopher Alfred North Whitehead wrote, "Civilization advances by extending the number of operations we can perform without thinking about them." Of course, the power of technology can work against us as well. Binge watching becomes a habit because you have to put more effort in to stop looking at the screen than to continue doing so. Instead of pressing a button to advance to the next episode, Netflix or YouTube will autoplay it for you. All you have to do is keep your eyes open. Technology creates a level of convenience that enables you to act on your smallest whims and desires at the mere suggestion of hunger. You can have food delivered to your door at the slightest hint of boredom. You can get lost in the vast expanse of social media. When the effort required to act on your desires becomes effectively zero, you can find yourself slipping into whatever impulse airs at the moment. The downside of automation is that we can find ourselves jumping from every task to task without making time for more difficult, but ultimately more rewarding work. I often find myself gravitating towards social media during mine, and that's where we're gonna end it off. It has been 10 minutes. I mean, it has been 15 minutes successfully, and yeah, I'm reading to get better at speaking. All right, I'm setting.
Where we at now?
Alright, so I am back with another 15 minutes of reading, and I'm reading because I want to improve the way I speak. It is currently December 30th, 10:48. Everybody get into it. 15 minutes on the clock. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Get down.
During any downtime, if I feel bored for just a fraction of a second, I reach for my phone. It's easy to write off these minor distractions as just taking a break, but over time they can accumulate into a serious issue. The constant tug of just one more minute can prevent me from doing anything of consequence. I'm not the only one. The average person spends over 2 hours per day on social media. What could you do with the extra 600 hours per year? Damn. During the year I was writing this book, I experimented with a new time management strategy. Every Monday, my assistant would reset the passwords on all my social media accounts. which logged me out each device. All week, I worked without distraction. On Friday, she would send me the new passwords. I had the entire weekend to enjoy what social media had to offer until Monday morning when she would do it again. If you don't have an assistant, team up with a friend or family member and reset each other's passwords each week. One of the biggest surprises was how quickly I adapted. Within the first week of locking myself out of social media, I realized that I didn't need to check it nearly as often as I did, and I certainly didn't need it each day. It had simply been so easy that it had become the default. Once my bad habit became impossible, I discovered that I did actually have the motivation to work on more meaningful tasks. After I removed the mental candy from my environment, it became more easier to eat the healthy stuff. When working in your favor, automation can make your good habits inevitable and your bad habits impossible. It is the ultimate way to lock in future behavior rather than relying on willpower in the moment. By utilizing commitment devices, strategic one-time decisions, and technology, you can create an environment of inevitability, a space where good habits are not just an outcome you hope for, but an outcome that is virtually guaranteed. The fourth law, make it satisfying. Show me some
Got my kitchen.
right there. The cardinal rule of behavior change. In the late 1990s, a public health worker named Stephen Luby left his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, and bought a one-way ticket to Karachi, Pakistan. Karachi was one of the most populous cities in the world. By 1998, over 9 million people called it home. It was the economic center of Pakistan and a transportation hub. With some of the most active airports and seaports in the region, in the commercial parts of town, you can find all the standard urban amenities and bustling downtown streets. But Karachi was also one of the least livable cities in the world. Only over oh god, calm down, bro. Over 60% of Karachi's residents lived in squatter settlements and slums. These densely packed neighborhoods were filled with makeshift houses cobbled together from old boards, cinder blocks, and other discarded materials. There was no waste removal system, no electricity grid, no clean water supply. When dry, the streets were a combination of dust and trash. When wet, they became a muddy pit of sewage. Mosquito colonies thrived in pools of stagnant water, and children played among the garbage. The unsanitary conditions led to widespread illness and disease. Contaminated water sources caused epidemics of diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Abdominal pain. Nearly one-third of the children living there were malnourished, with so many people crammed into such a small space. Viruses and bacterial infections spread rapidly. It was the public health crisis that had brought Stephen Ruby to Pakistan. Ruby and his team realized that in an environment with poor sanitation, the simple habit of washing your hands would make a real difference in the health of the residents. But they soon discovered that many people were already aware that hand washing was important. And yet, despite the knowledge, many residents were washing their hands in haphazard fashion. Some people would just run their hands under the water quickly. Others would only wash one hand. Many would simply forget to wash their hands before preparing food. Everyone said hand washing was important, but few people made a habit out of it. The problem wasn't knowledge, the problem was consistency. That was when Ruby and his team partnered with Procter and Gamble to supply the neighborhood with Safeguard soap. Compared to your standard bar of soap, using Safeguard was a more enjoyable experience. In Pakistan, Safeguard was a premium soap, Ruby told me. The study participants calmly mentioned how much they liked it. The soap foamed easily and people were able to lather their hands with suds. It smelled great. Instantly, hand washing became slightly more pleasurable. I see the goal of hand washing promotion not as behavior change, but as a habit adoption. Ruby said, it is a lot easier for people to adopt a product that provides a strong positive sensory signal. For example, the mint taste of toothpaste. than it is to adopt a habit that does not provide pleasurable sensory feedback, like flossing one's teeth. The marketing team at Procter and Gamble talked about trying to create a positive hand washing experience. Within months, researchers saw a rapid shift in the health of children in the neighborhood. The rate of diarrhea fell by 52%, pneumonia by 48%, and impetigo, a bacterial skin infection, by 35%. The long-term effects were even better. We went back on some of the households of Karachi 6 years ago. 6 years later, Ruby told me over 95% of households who had been given the soap for free and encouraged to wash their hands had hand washing stations with soap and water available when our study team visited. We had not given any soap to the intervention group for over 5 years. But during the trial, they had become they were so habituated to wash their hands that they had maintained the practice. It was a powerful example of the fourth and final law of behavior change. Make it satisfying. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. This is entirely logical. Feelings of pleasure, even minor ones like washing your hands with soap that smells nice and loud as well, are signals that tell the brain this feels good. Do this again. Next time, pleasure teaches your brain that a behavior is worth remembering and repeating. Take the story of chewing gum. Chewing gum had been sold commercially throughout the 1800s, but it wasn't until Wrigley launched in 1891 that it became a worldwide habit. Early versions were made from relatively bland raisins, chewy but not tasty. Wrigley revolutionized the industry by adding flavors like like spearmint and juicy fruit, which made the product flavorful and fun to use. Then they went a step further and began pushing chewing gum as a pathway to clean mouth. Advertisements told readers to refresh your taste. Tasty flavors and the feeling of fresh mouth provided little bits of immediate reinforcement and made the product satisfying to use. Consumption skyrocketed, and Wrigley became the largest chewing gum company in the world. Toothpaste had a similar trajectory. Manufacturers enjoyed great success when they added flavors like spearmint, peppermint, and cinnamon to their products. These flavors don't improve the effectiveness of toothpaste, they simply create a clean mouth feel and make the experience of brushing your teeth more pleasurable. My wife actually stopped using Sensodyne because she didn't like the aftertaste. She switched to a brand with a larger mint flavor, which proved to be more satisfying. Conversely, if an experience is not satisfying, we have little reason to repeat it. In my research, I came across the story of a woman who had a narcissistic relative who drove her nuts. In an attempt to spend less time with the egomaniac, she acted as dull and as boring as possible whenever he was around. Within a few encounters, he started avoiding her because he found her so uninteresting. Stories like these are evidence of cardinal behavior change. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. You learn what to do in the future based on what you were rewarded for doing or punished for doing in the past. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. My bad if I keep stuttering, guys. The first three laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. Increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The fourth law of behavior change: make it satisfying. Increases the odds of that a behavior will be repeated next time. It completes the habit loop. But there is a trick. We are not looking for just any type of satisfaction. We are looking for immediate satisfaction. The mismatch between immediate and delayed rewards. Imagine you're an animal roaming the plains of Africa, a giraffe or an elephant or a lion or on any given day. Most of your decisions have an immediate impact. You are always thinking about what to eat or where to sleep or how to avoid a predator. You are constantly focused on the present of the very near future. You live in what scientists call an immediate return environment because your actions instantly deliver clear and immediate outcomes. Now switch back to your human self. In modern day society, many of the choices you make today will not benefit you immediately. If you do a good job at work, you'll get a paycheck in a few weeks. If you exercise today, perhaps you won't be overweight next year. If you save money today, perhaps you won't be no. If you save money to if you save money now, maybe you'll have enough for retirement decades from now. You live in what scientists call a delayed return environment because you can work for years before your actions deliver an intended payoff. The human brain did not evolve for life. In a delayed return environment, the earliest remains of modern humans, known as Homo sapiens, are approximately 200,000 years old. These were the first humans to have brain relatively similar to ours. In particular, the neurocortex, the newest part of the brain, and the region responsible for higher functions like language, was roughly the same size 200,000 years ago as today. You are walking around with the same hardware as your Paleolithic ancestors. It is only recently, during the last 500 years or so, that the society has shifted to a predominantly delayed return environment. Compared to the age of the brain, modern society is brand new. In the last 100 years, we have seen the rise of the car, the airplane, the television, the personal computer, the internet, the smartphone, and Beyonce. The world has changed much in the recent years, but human nature has changed little. Similar to other animals on the African savanna, our ancestors spent their days responding to grave threats, securing the next meal, and taking shelter from the storm. It made sense to place high value on an instant gratification. The distant future was less of a concern, and after thousands of generations in an immediate return environment, our brains evolved to prefer quick payoffs to long-term ones. Behavioral economists refer to the tendency as time inconsistency. That is, the way your brain evaluates rewards is inconsistent across time. You value the present more than the future. Usually, the tendency serves us well. A reward that is certain right now is typically worth more than one that is really possible in the future. But occasionally, our bias toward instant gratification causes a problem. Why would someone smoke if they know it increases the risk of lung cancer? Why would someone overeat when they know it increases the risk of obesity? Why would someone have unsafe sex if they know it can result in sexually transmitted disease? Once you understand how the brain prioritizes rewards, the answers become clear. The consequences of bad habits are delayed. While the rewards are immediate, smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress and eases your nicotine cravings now. Overeating is harmful in the long run, but appetizing in the moment, sex safe or non provides pleasure right away. Disease and infection won't show up for days or weeks, even years. Every habit produces multiple outcomes across time. Unfortunately, these outcomes are often misaligned. With our bad habits, the immediate outcome usually feels good, but the ultimate outcome feels bad. With good habits, it is the reverse. The immediate outcome is unenjoyable, but the ultimate outcome feels good. The French economist Frederick Bastiat explained the problem clearly when he wrote, "It almost always happens that when the immediate consequence is favorable, the later consequences are disastrous, and vice versa. Often, the sweeter the first fruit of a habit, the more bitter are its later fruits." All right, that has been 15 minutes. I just read that. I am reading this to better the way I speak. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Alright, we're here for a second time to read again for 15 minutes today. It is currently January 1st, 6:58 p.m. and it's the second time me reading. I, so I am back with another 15 minutes of reading, and I'm reading because I want to improve the way I speak. It is currently January 1st of 2026, 12:34 p.m. And I'm about to do 20 minutes of reading to improve the way that I speak. Let's go. 20 minutes. 3, 2, 1. Habit tracking is satisfying. This is the most crucial benefit of them all. Tracking can become its own form of reward. It is satisfying to cross an item off your to-do list, to complete an entry in your workout log, or to mark an X on your calendar. It feels good to watch your results grow. The size of your investment portfolio, the length of your book manuscript, and if it feels good, then you're more likely to endure. Habit tracking also helps keep your eye on the ball. You're focused on the process rather than the result. You're not fixated on getting six-pack abs. You're just trying to keep the streak alive and become the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. In summary, habit tracking creates a visual food that can remind you to act. It is inherently motivating because you see the progress you are making and don't want to lose it. And 3, feels satisfying whenever you record another successful instance of your habit. Furthermore, habit tracking provides visual proof that you are casting votes for the type of person that you wish to become, which is a delightful form of immediate and intrinsic gratification. You may you may be wondering if habit tracking is so useful. Why have I waited so long to talk about it? Despite all the benefits, I've left this discussion until now for a simple reason. Many people resist the idea of tracking and measuring. It can feel like a burden because it forces you into two habits: the habit you're trying to build and the habit of tracking it. Counting calories sounds like a hassle when you're already struggling to follow a diet. Writing down every sales call seems tedious when you've got work to do. It feels easy to say, I'll just eat less, or I'll try harder, or I'll remember to do it. People inevitably tell me things like, I have a decision journal, but I wish I used it more, or I recorded my workouts for a week, but then I quit. I've been there myself. I once made a food log to track my calories. I managed to do it for one meal and then gave up. Tracking isn't for everyone, and there is no need to measure your entire life. But nearly anyone can benefit from it in some form. Even if it's only temporary, even if it's only temporary. What can we do to make tracking easier? First, whenever possible, measurement should be automated. You'll probably be surprised by how much you're already tracking without knowing it. Your credit card statement tracks how often you go out to eat. Your Fitbit register how many steps you take and how long you sleep. Your calendar records how many new places you travel to each year. Once you know where to get the data, add a note to your calendar to review it each week or each month, which is more practical than tracking it every day. Second, manual tracking should be limited to your most important habits. It is better to consistently track one habit than to sporadically track 10. Finally, record each measurement immediately after the habit occurs. The completion of the behavior is the cue to write it down. This approach approach allows you to combine the habit stacking method mentioned in chapter 5 with habit tracking. The habit stacking plus habit tracking formula is: after current habit, I will track my habit. After I hang up the phone from sales calls, I will move one paperclip over. After I finish each set at the gym, I will record it in my workout journal. After I put my plate in the dishwasher, I will write down that I ate. These tactics can make tracking your habits easier. Even if you aren't the type of person who enjoys recording your behavior, I think you'll find a few weeks of measurements to be insightful. It's always interesting to see how you've actually been spending your time. That said, every habit streak ends at some point. And more important than any single measurement is having a good plan for when your habits slide off track. How to recover quickly when your habits break down. No matter how consistent you are with your habits, it is inevitable that life will interrupt you at some point. Perfection is not possible. Before long, an emergency will pop up. You get sick, or you have to travel for work, or your family needs a little more of your time. Whenever this happens, I try to remind myself of a simple rule: never miss twice. If I miss one day, I try to get back into it as quickly as possible. Missing one workout happens, but I'm not going to miss two in a row. Maybe I'll eat an entire pizza, but I'll follow it up with a healthy meal. I can't be perfect, but I can avoid a second lapse. As soon as one streak ends, I get started to do the next one. The first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. This is the distinguishing feature between winners and losers. Yeah. Anyone can have a bad performance, a bad workout, a bad day at work, but when successful people fail, they rebound quickly. The breaking of a habit doesn't matter if the reclaiming of it is fast. I think it's principle. I think this principle is so important that I'll stick to it even if I can't do a habit as well or as completely as I would like. Too often, we fall into an all or nothing circle with our habits. The problem is not slipping up. The problem is thinking that if you can't do something perfectly, then you shouldn't do it at all. You don't realize how valuable it is to just show up on your bad or busy days. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. If you start with $100, then a 50% gain will take you to $150. But you only need a 33% loss to take you back to $100. In other words, avoiding a 33% loss is just as valuable as achieving a 50% gain. As Charlie Munger says, the first rule of compounding: never interrupt it unnecessarily. This is why the bad workouts are often the most important ones. Sluggish days and bad workouts maintain the compound gains you accrued from previous good days. Simply doing something, 10 squats, 5 sprints, a push up, anything really is huge. Don't put up a zero. Don't let losses eat into your compounding. Furthermore, it's not always about what happens during the workout. It's about being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. It's easy to train when you feel good, but it's crucial to show up when you don't feel like it. Even if you do less than you hope, going to the gym for 5 minutes may not improve your performance, but it reaffirms your identity. The all or nothing circle of behavior change is just one pitiful that can derail your habits. Another potential danger, especially if you are using a habit tracker, is measuring the wrong thing. Knowing when and when not to track a habit. Say you're running a restaurant and you want to know if your chef is doing a good job. One way to measure success is to track how many customers pay for a meal each day. If more customers come in, the food must be good. If fewer customers come in, something must be wrong. However, this measurement, daily revenue, only gives a limited picture of what's really going on. Just because someone pays for your meal doesn't mean they enjoy it. Even dissatisfied customers are unlikely to dine and dash. In fact, if you're only measuring revenue, the food might be getting worse, but you're making up for it with marketing or discounts or some other method. Instead, it may be more effective to track how many customers finish their meal, or perhaps the percentage of customers who leave a generous tip. The dark side of tracking a particular behavior is that we become driven by the number rather than the purpose behind it. If your success is measured by quarterly earnings, you will optimize sales, revenue, and accounting for quarterly earnings. If your success is measured by a lower number of on a scale, you will optimize for a lower number on the scale. Even if that means embracing cash diets, juice cleanses, and fat loss pills, the human mind wants to win whatever game is being played. The pitfall is evident in many areas of life. We focus on working long hours instead of getting meaningful work done. We care more about getting 10,000 steps than we do about being healthy. We teach for standardized tests instead of emphasizing learning, curiosity, and critical thinking. In short, we optimize for what we measure. When we choose the wrong measurement, we get the wrong behavior. This is sometimes referred to as Goodhart's Law, named after the economist Charles Goodhart. The principle states, when a measure becomes target, it ceases to be good measure. Measurement is only useful when it guides you and adds context to a larger picture, not when it consumes you. Each number is simply one piece of feedback in the overall system. In our data-driven world, we tend to overvalue the numbers and undervalue anything ephemeral, ephemeral. Bad guys. I don't know what it is. Ephemeral. Yep. Ephemeral, soft, and difficult to quantify. What that mean? Ephemeral. Lasting for a very short time. Ephemeral, soft, and difficult to quantify. We mistakenly think the factors we can measure are the only factors that exist. But just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. And just because you can't measure something doesn't mean it's not important at all. All of this to say, it's crucial to keep habit tracking in its proper place. It can feel satisfying to record a habit and track your progress. But the measurement is not the only thing that matters. Furthermore, there are many ways to measure progress, and sometimes it helps to shift your focus to something entirely different. This is why non-scale victories can be effective for weight loss. The number on the scale may be stubborn. So if you focus solely on that number, your motivation will sag. But you may notice that your skin looks better, or you wake up earlier, or your sex drive got a boost. All of these are valid ways to track your improvement. If you're not feeling, if you're not feeling motivated by the number on the scale, perhaps it's time to focus on different measurements. One that gives you more signals of progress. No matter how you measure your improvement, habit tracking offers a simple way to make your habits more satisfying. Each measurement provides a little bit of evidence that you're moving in the right direction and a brief moment of immediate pleasure for a job well done. How an accountability partner can change everything. After serving as a pilot in World War II, Roger Fisher attended Harvard Law School and spent 34 years specializing in negotiation and conflict management. He founded the Harvard Litigation Project and worked with numerous countries and world leaders on peace resolution, hostage crisis, and diplomatic compromise. But it was in the 1970s and 1980s as the threat of nuclear war escalated. The Fisher development, perhaps his most interesting idea. At the time, Fisher was focused on designing strategies that could prevent nuclear war. And we had noticed a troubling fact. Any sitting president would have access to large codes that could kill millions of people, but would never actually see anyone die because he would always be thousands of miles away. My suggestion was quite simple. He wrote in 1981, but that nuclear code number in a little capsule, and then put that nuclear code number in a little capsule, and then implant the capsule right next to the heart of the volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big, heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If ever the president wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he could do so would be for him first, with his own hands. To kill one human being, the president says, George I'm sorry for tens of millions must die. He has to look at someone and realize what death is. What an innocent death is, blood on the White House carpet. It's reality brought home. When I suggested this to my friends in the Pentagon, they said, "My God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He would never push the button." Throughout our discussion of the fourth law of behavior change, we have covered the importance of making your habits immediately satisfying. Fisher's proposal is an inversion of the fourth law. Make it immediately unsatisfying. Just as we are more likely to repeat the experience when the ending is satisfying, we are also more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. Pain is an effective teacher. If a failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. The more immediate and more costly a mistake is, the faster you will learn from it. The threat of a bad review forces a plumber to be good at his job. The possibility of a customer never returning makes restaurants good food. The cost of cutting the wood, the wrong blood vessel, makes a surgeon master human anatomy and cut carefully. When the consequences are severe, people learn quickly. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. If you want to prevent bad habits and eliminate unhealthy behaviors, then adding an instant cause to the action is a great way to reduce their odds. We repeat bad habits because they serve us in some way, and that makes them hard to abandon. The best way I know to overcome this predicament is to increase the speed of the punishment associated with the behavior. There can't be a gap between the action and the consequences. As soon as actions incur an immediate consequence, behavior begins to change. Customers pay their bills on time when they are charged a late fee. Students show up to class when their grade is linked to attendance. We'll jump through a lot of hoops to avoid a little bit of immediate pain. There is, of course, a limit to this if you're going to rely on punishment to change behavior when the strength of the punishment must match the relative strength of the behavior it is trying to correct. To be productive, the cost of procrastination must be greater than the cost of action. To be healthy, the cost of laziness must be greater than the cost of exercise. Getting fined for smoking in the restaurant or failing to recycle adds consequence in their action. Behavior only shifts if the punishment is painful enough and reliably enforced. In general, the more local, tangible, concrete, and immediate the consequence, the more likely it is to influence individual behavior. The more global, intangible, vague, and delayed the consequence, the less likely it is to influence individual behavior. Thankfully, there is a straightforward way to add an immediate cost to any bad habit. Create a habit contract. The habit contract. The first seatbelt law was passed in New York on December 1st, 1984. At the time, just 14% of people in the United States regularly wore a seatbelt, but that was all about to change. Within 5 years, over half the nation had seatbelt laws. Today, wearing a seatbelt is enforceable by law in 49 of the 50 states. And it's not just the legislation. The number of people wearing seatbelts has changed dramatically as well. In 2016, over 88% of Americans buckled up each time they got into a car. In just over 30 years, there were completely reversal in habits of millions of people. Laws and regulations are an example of how government can change our habits by creating a social contract. As a society, we collectively agree to abide by certain rules and then enforce them as a group. Whenever a new place of legislation impacts behavior, seatbelt laws, banning smoking inside restaurants, mandatory recycling, it is an example of social contract shaping our habits. The group agrees to act in a certain way, and if you don't follow along, you'll be punished. Just as governments use laws to hold citizens accountable, you can create a habit contract to hold yourself accountable. A habit contract is a verbal or written agreement in which you state your commitment to a particular habit, the punishment that will occur if you don't follow through. Then you find one or two people to act as your accountability partners and sign off on the contract with you. Brian Harris, an entrepreneur from Nashville, Tennessee, was the first person I saw put this strategy into action. Shortly after the birth of his son, Harris realized he wanted to shed a few pounds. He wrote up a habit contract between himself, his wife, and his personal trainer. The first version was Brian's number one objective for Q1 of 2017 is to start eating correctly again so he feels better, looks better, and is able to hit the long-term goal of 200 pounds at 10% body fat. Below the statement, Harris laid out the roadmap for achieving this ideal outcome. Phase 1, get back to a strict slow-carb diet in Q1. Phase 2, start a strict macronutrient tracking program in Q2. Phase 3, refine and maintain the details of his diet and workout program in Q3. Finally, he wrote out each of the daily habits that will get him to his goal. For example, write down all the food he consumes each day and weigh himself each day. And then he listed the punishment of if he failed. If Brian doesn't do these two items, then the following consequence will be enforced. He will have to dress up each workday and each Sunday morning for the rest of the quarter. Dress up is defined as not wearing jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, or shorts. He will also give Joey, his trainer, 200 to use as he sees fit if he misses one day of logging food. At the bottom of the page, Harris, his wife, and his trainer all signed the contract. My initial reaction was that the contract like this seemed overly formal and unnecessary, especially the signatures. But Harris convinced me that signing the contract was an indication of seriousness. Anytime I skipped a part, he said, I start slacking almost immediately. 3 months later, after hitting his targets for Q1, Harris upgraded his goals. The consequences escalated too. If he missed his carbohydrate and protein starch targets, he had to pay his trainer $100. And if he failed to weigh himself, that has been 20 minutes, but I'm going to finish this. And if he failed to weigh himself, he had to give his wife $5 to use as she saw fit. Perhaps most painfully, if he forgot to run sprints, he had to dress up for work every day and wear an Alabama hat the rest of the quarter. The bitter rival of his beloved urban team. The strategy worked. With his wife and trainer acting as accountability partners, and with the habit contract clarifying exactly what to do each day, Harris lost the weight. To make bad habits unsatisfying, your best option is to make them painful in the moment. Creating a habit contract is a straightforward way to do exactly that. Even if you don't want to create a full-blown habit contract, simply, I'm ending off 210. That has been 20 minutes of reading. I am reading to get my speaking done. I'll be reading for the next 20 minutes. I believe this is my last time reading this book. If I could read these last few pages in 20 minutes, it's about 20 something more pages left. Here we go.
We're not reading the rest of it right now, chat. When I come back, chat, I'm gonna be done in front of, so we're gonna be doing something else. Probably a few reviews or something. I'll let y'all know. I'll let y'all know. Richer than ever, whipping a Tesla, consoles, etc. Hit them with pressure. My niggas won't let up. Tell them niggas to catch up. Wake up, got a million in diamonds that sit on the dresser. Run up the check now, flexing my muscles up like cause we come from nothing to rolling supply. Fake love, we was holding them back. Flashbacks while you pouring the yak. Since a young nigga, he just wanted to sex. A daydream about thumping the rack. He tucked to get cold in the rack. Tears fall while you loading the strap. Seen it all, we just wanna relax. I'm richer than I ever been. Put my heart before the bad worst shit I ever did. Gave you a second chance to laugh again. Remember days I used to wonder will we ever win. Chasing green, reaching for the stars. Be all you can be, either you don't stop. Hanging out that bottom body, beat the odds. You can ride that I'm richer than I've ever been. 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 Ever been. Richer than me.